Welcome to NCC lecture series. Previous lecture number 36, we discussed national interests. And in that lecture, I said that we are also discussing national objectives. And today we discuss national objectives. Honorable Commanding Officer, respected Associate NCC officers, respected permanent instructors, dear cadets and students. India is the largest democracy of the world. And India is developing country. It is developing very fast. And India has made rapid progress in all spheres after its independence in 1947. It has developed in agriculture sector. It has, of course, progressed very much in industrialization, urbanization, science and technology. And we know that the contribution of India to different branches, all sectors in India and outside, of course, is very much praised by all the country and all the people. In fact, when we look at the directive principles of state policy, the directive principles of state policy, we have a code of conduct for administrators of India. And this particular code of conduct in the directive principles of state policy is helping the administrators to discharge their responsibilities as agents of a sovereign nation. And India, a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, has a number of objectives. And we are today looking at the important objectives of India, which are in fact very clearly stated in the directive principles of state policy. And we have to learn each and every important objective of the greatest country, that is of course the greatest, the largest democracy of the world, India. The first objective of this great nation is to ensure and protect a social order which stands for the welfare of the people. So this is the very first objective, the welfare of the people, to ensure and protect a social order which stands for the welfare of the people. So this is the first, easy to understand, the well-being, the status, the safety, the protection, and of course the well-being of the people. People must be secure. All the needs of the people must be properly discharged by, fulfilled by the country. And the first objective of this great democracy is to ensure and protect a social order which stands for the welfare of the people. Now we move on to the second objective of the great country, that is of course separation of judiciary from executive. We have a federal republic, we have a central government, of course under the central governments we have of course state governments, and the constitution has written, the constitution of India has stated everything very clearly about the functions, the duties and the powers of the state government as well as the powers of the central government. And it is very clearly laid down, stated in the Constitution of India that the judiciary and the executive must be separate. And this is of course one thing we have to very carefully remember when it comes to the administration of the country. And of course this is the second objective of our nation India, separation of judiciary from executive. If there isn't a separation from the judiciary and the executive, there may not be justice. So the constitution ensures that the administrators have to ensure that the judiciary is totally free from executive. They must not influence each other. Then only law and order and justice will prevail. And now we come to the third objective of India, national objective number 3, protection of national monuments. We know ours is, of course, a country with a great legacy, a great history, and of course we have a great culture. We have numerous religions, and of course we had a lot of kings and kingdoms here in our country, and of course we have a lot of monuments in our country. No matter whether it is the Taj Mahal, the Qutb Minar, or of course all those great temples and churches and mosques constructed, of course, many years before, which are, of course, excellent pieces of art and, of course, architecture, right? And the Constitution just states that the objective of the country is to protect national monuments, protection of national monuments. Now we look at the fourth objective of the country, protection and improvement in environment, forests and wildlife. This is very important. Okay, we know that we today face a lot of problems. We have a lot of problems affected by, caused by climatic changes. Okay, we often read about the depletion of the ozone layer. We hear about pollution. We hear about contamination, and we know that some of the most deadly diseases we suffer from today are caused by all these depletion of ozone layer, pollution, contamination, and of course the failure of managing, of course, the use of the resources. And we have to be very careful about the environment, the forest and wildlife, because environment is the cradle of life. Environment is, of course, the very source of energy, and the energy or the life or the, of course, the breath of the human beings is from, of course, the environment, and the environment must be very carefully protected, and we should ensure that we have a very clean and energetic in the sense that, of course, an environment which is, of course, so conducive or suitable for the living beings, not just for the human beings alone. All right, and now we also have to preserve and protect the forest and wildlife, right? So a certain percentage of the country's land should be preserved and protected as forest and the wildlife. Each and every living and non-living thing in this earth is, of course, in the ecosystem, is very important for a balanced system, rather for a balanced ecosystem. And of course we need to have all the biotic and abiotic things in the earth as it was, of course, in the beginning of the world. So we have to protect and improve the environment, forest and wildlife. And as NCC cadets, of course, we should be very careful about preserving the environment and, of course, forest and wildlife, because we are planting trees, and every year we are, of course, observing the Environment Day. And this kind of awareness programs and little deeds like plantation of saplings and trees, of course, will ensure that we have a very good environment, forest and wildlife. Now we move on to the fifth objective of the country: organize agriculture and animal husbandry on modern and scientific lines. So ours is, of course, an agrarian economy. Ours is an agrarian country, and we depend on agriculture, and we have to understand the fact that we are depending on modern and scientific lines for agrarian development or agricultural development, and also animal husbandry. But unfortunately it is not we could not attain that motive of implementing modern and scientific technology, or modern devices, and of course scientific devices for or rather scientific system for agriculture and animal husbandry. Most of the villages, we people still depend on the conventional kind of farming and animal husbandry. It has to change, and this is yet another objective of our nation. Now the sixth objective, improvement of public health. The backbone of the country is the backbone of all the sectors: agriculture, industry, also every sector is of course the people, and there must be a healthy population. The population of the country must be healthy, and each and every government, center and state, should take of course a lot of policies to improve the public health, the health of ordinary people. And when we look at the health of the people, of course, in certain places, right, the rate of the percentage of the death of babies, and of course death of women, all right, is much high, and we have to ensure that the health of the people are of course very good. And this is the sixth objective, improvement of public health. This point, of course, I would like to comment on the fact that we very successfully could control many diseases, especially contagious diseases, and of course, and ours is of course a country which is very careful about, which is of course implementing a lot of praiseworthy schemes in ensuring public health. It is very obvious if we look at what's happening in other countries and what's happening in our country. And now we of course come to the seventh objective, prohibition of intoxicating drinks and drugs. And this is of course very important, and certain states, it is unfortunate that people still continue to use intoxicating drinks and drugs, and we youngsters must understand the fact that any drug, any substance, any intoxicating substance, no matter whether it is liquor or drugs, it is of course harmful for our body. And our body is something that is precious, and we have to remain healthy. And in order to remain healthy, we should just remain away from, we should not use any kind of intoxicating or drinks or drugs, and including of course smoking also very dangerous, right? Not just drinks and drugs alone, nothing, okay? All this is very harmful for our body, and our body is very delicate, and it is, our life is a gift from God, and we should live a very good life, ensuring that our body is always pure and always strong and energetic. And we have to remember the fact that our body is the seat of the God. Our body is of course the seat of the Spirit of God. So we should ensure that it is not toxic, it is not contaminated. So prohibition of intoxicating drinks and drugs is another objective of the country. Now we come to the eighth objective of India, promotion of educational and economic interests of weaker sections of the people. And this is very important. When we look at India, we understand that India is of course the largest democracy of the world, and ours is of course a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. But when it comes to socialism and secularism, of course there are some problems, right? Because we are afraid that we have the features of a capitalist country. Sometimes, although ours is a democratic country, we have the feature of or features of capitalist country, although we have a lot of politics parties here, and these parties of course believe in socialism, and despite of being to a certain extent a socialist democracy, we have the problem of the gap between the rich and the poor. And as per the data, we understand that India is of course a country with the most important rich people of the world. Most of the rich people of the world we have in the country. But the other side we have of course a lot of poor people. Poor people. And this gap between the rich and the poor is of course not good for a socialist democracy or a democratic country like ours, because the Constitution of India is upholding the principle that ours is a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic country. And when we think of the weak people, especially the marginalized people, okay, say for example the tribal people, the scheduled caste people, the scheduled tribe people, we are of course quite afraid to say the fact that development or improvement hasn't come to the condition, especially educational and economic and social status of the weaker sections of our country. And this is very bad, or rather it's not good for our country, because ours is of course the largest democracy, and we have been independent for a long time. Despite of being independent for such a long time, our country, say the weaker sections of our country, the tribal people, of course the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, their educational and economic status and interest is not properly cared for, and this has to change. Development has to of course begin from the grassroots level. People, the poor people, the marginalized people, the tribals and the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes must get enough educational and economic development, and of course our administrators and governments must of course look into this particular problem, and proper schemes and plans must be implemented to lift up these weaker sections of the society or the country, of course in education, health, and of course economical economical sector or economic financial matters, right? They must be given proper care. Now we come to the ninth objective of the country, and this is of course to have a uniform code of law irrespective of caste, creed, color or religion. This is very important. And even in 21st century, we are of course in 2020, this is of course the 21st century, and when we look at the judiciary, of course certain cases we are sad to say that of course there is delay in proper judicial interference, and of course all the time the verdicts may not be of course uniform, right? So we must ensure that we have a uniform code of law irrespective of caste, creed, color or religion. And when we look at the newspapers and the news reports, we understand that the lower caste people in certain parts of the country are not cared for properly, and their condition is of course still very bad. That's what we understand. Recently, of course, we have seen that there are some problems in the case of women in certain weak or rather certain castes, like the lower caste women, right? And they are often suppressed and oppressed by certain anti-socials as well as certain powerful people. And of course we as NCC cadets as well as representatives of goodness and good ideals should ensure that the objective of the Constitution of India, to have uniform code of law irrespective of caste, creed, color or religion, is of course attained, or rather it is prevailing in the country. Now we come to the 10th objective of the nation: participation of workers and laborers in labor law. So we should ensure that the workers and laborers of our country, they are aware of labor laws and all their rights are of course properly met with. And now we move on to the 11th objective of the nation: promotion of cottage industries. As I said some time ago, ours is of course an agrarian economy. Our country is an agricultural economy, a country, and of course we have a number of cottage industries. As we all know, almost all the industries of course begin from families, or rather cottages, and we still have a number of cottage industries, right? Like we are making a lot of handicrafts and of course other things just for the use of people, and all these like we have of course the lot of things which are made, like the baskets and different mats, and of course everything, maybe of course clothing, right? So a lot of things are just for different purposes of us, is of course made in the families, right? And all this is coming under cottage industry, and cottage industry must be promoted. So here what we mean is of course, right, proper support and initiative from the side of government has to go to the development of cottage industries, because a lot of people still depend on cottage industries. Okay, now we come to the 12th objective of country: provision of maternity leave. Say women, right, mothers of course, they are gods, goddesses, mothers and goddesses, all right. If it is because of mothers that we have life on earth, it is because of women that we have life on earth. Okay, so mothers must be respected, loved, cared. Not just mothers, women must be respected, loved and cared for, and all atrocities towards women should end. All atrocities towards women should end. And maternity leave. We have a lot of women from our communities and societies and of course families are working in of course government sector as well as the private sector, and of course they even do, right, they are self-employed as well, right? So women especially, okay, maternity leave should be given, maternity relief should be given, leave should be given, and of course government aid should do, state and center should fund maternity relief. All right, and this is something very important, and this is an objective of our country. And now we come to the 13th objective of our country: education to all. See, without education, without literacy, there is no development. So in order to ensure proper development, we should ensure that education reaches everybody, and okay, each and every state government should ensure that proper planning, proper we have enough schemes to assure education to all. And unfortunately, even in some parts of the country, there are a number of illiterate people who can't even write their name, and it has to change. Education must reach everybody, and the population, right, all the citizens of the country must be properly educated. Now we come to the 14th objective of our nation, that is equal justice to all. All right, I said some time ago about the division or the gap between the rich and the poor, and equality should be, or justice should be, there must be equality in implementing justice. And maybe we are sad to say that it doesn't happen all the time, but the governments say, or rather the judiciary, okay, we have of course the Supreme Court and of course the high courts, right? And we have, of course, the greatest formidable document, that is, of course, the Constitution of India. And everything must be law and order, and judiciary has to, of course, function as per the Constitution of India, and the equal justice must be given to everybody, and this is yet another objective. And now we come to, of course, another very important objective of the nation: equal pay for equal work, both men and women. It is, of course, implemented in certain states which are, of course, rather high in literacy, but in some states it is not so. So women do not get equal pay for equal work, and this is something injustice, right? So sometimes when you look at certain works going on, we will understand that if there are men and women working, women work more than men, but women are not given the equal payment, and this is in fact something very bad, and this is an objective which is yet to be achieved: equal pay for equal work, both men and women. Now we come to the next objective, that is the 16th objective: adequate means of livelihood to all the citizens of the country. The government should enough policies and implement schemes so that everybody has a means or a way for livelihood. Some people, of course, depend on service sector. Some people depend on agriculture sector. Some people depend on cottage industries. Okay, so somehow every citizen, all the citizens of the country must have adequate means of livelihood. So there may be people who are, of course, not properly educated, trained, and not all the people are not professionals, but government should, of course, and there are a number of schemes, and this is yet another objective of the country. So far we saw 16 objectives of the greatest democracy, the largest democracy of the world. That is, all this is from the state, rather the directive principles of state policy. And of course, with this we come to the end of this lecture. Thank you very much for listening.